Any apologies? Any apologies?
We don't have any apology. I think all members have joined now. Thank you.
All members have joined now.
So that members are aware. There seems to be glitches on my side. I'm not sure, but I don't know if other members are able to hear me properly. But we are live streaming this meeting on YouTube. Thank you.
Our serious people are on YouTube. All right. No thanks. I think let me not waste much time, because as I'm saying that some of us, data is something that really give us a problem. Let's then, because we have dealt with the issue of the constitution of the meeting, we have dealt with the issue of welcoming. I don't think I will ask members to add anything, because this is a straightforward meeting. It's a meeting that we are expecting the National to present to us the bill. So then you already introduced, it's Mr. Naidu who's going to give a presentation of
Yes.
Uqiniso omkhulu nazo sekufika amadunge madoda phela amadunge siyakhuleka emadungeni madoda.
Poeto.
Nokuthula, who's going to be presenting to us on behalf of National? Is Mr. Naidu or who?
Yes, it's Mr. Naidu.
I haven't seen them. Can Mr. Naidu speak? Can they greet us, all of them?
Hi, good afternoon, Chair. It's Kevin Naidu from Kokta. Yes, thank you, sir. I'm going to be joined in the presentation with Mr. Granville Abrahams. He's from the IEC. So you will get a sense that a lot of the amendments that we're going to be looking at are primarily governance and electoral related. So Granville will come in every now and again to assist with the presentation.
Okay, no, thanks very much, Mr. Naidu. I think, let me not waste time. Let me just send over to you so that you can then take us through, and then after that we'll have engagement. You must listen. You have the first time information, so you have to listen to this. Yes, Mr. Naidu, you can go on.
Chair, is the presentation viewable?
Yes, it's viewable on my side.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so the presentation that we're going to be making this afternoon is very much the presentation that we made to the NCOP earlier this year. I think it was around the 4th of February. So as we had done then, it's going to be a presentation that's Kokta is going to make, as well as supported by the IEC. So we're going to give you some background, a high-level overview of what sits in the bill, in the structures bill, and then we're going to give you a little more detail as to the various clauses that's in the bill. So to start by saying that, the development of the bill was mostly informed by the IEC experiencing challenges around the administration and the management of municipal elections. And then we'll give you a few stats there to say that in the first term of local government, the one that started in 2000, we had 60 by-elections for that entire 5-year period. In the second term, we had 54 by-elections. In the third term of local government, we had 741 by-elections. So you can see that enormous jump that we've had, and it was based on various dynamics that we had in local governments. In the present term of local government, we have had 342 as at the end of Feb. It would have been much more had the state of disaster not been declared in March. So while we've had the inputs from the IEC, as time went on, we had also received inputs from the Koktas in the provinces, the Salga, and municipalities. And most of these dealt a lot with strengthening oversight and governance in municipalities. So the provisions that we have in the bill today are based on that, but also has been subject to a lot of engagements with various stakeholders. I mean, for it to have gotten to this stage as well, it would have gotten through to Cabinet, the National Assembly, and now being sent to the provinces for further engagement. So, in the Portfolio Committee on COCTA in Parliament, right? So we had gone to them on the 13th and 20th of November, 2018. We had engagements or presentations made by SALGA, the Demarcation Board, the COCTAs in KZN, Western Cape and the Northern Cape, Department of Justice, the IEC, as well as by our own department. We also received written inputs from the COCTA in the Free State and in Mpumalanga. The Portfolio Committee had also advertised or requested submissions on the bill through the media. And suffice to say that no written submissions were made on the bill. So after that closing of the submission period, we had further engagements in the Portfolio Committee on the 5th and 6th of December. And in those engagements, based on the inputs that were made in the committee, we had made changes to 20 clauses in the bill. The bill was subsequently debated in the National Assembly on the 13th of February last year, and then sent to the NCOP for concurrence, it being a Section 76 bill. So post the national and provincial elections of last year, the Minister had requested that the bill be considered by the NCOP. It was subsequently revived by the NCOP in October last year. And then we had an engagement with the Select Committee on COCTA of the NCOP on the 4th of February. So the next slide sets out how the bill has been delineated. So if you look at the column or the block on your left in green, in light green. So wherever you see in the presentation hereafter, and if a matter has been highlighted in a light green, it is an electoral related matter. If it is in the light blue, it's a governance matter. And if it is in that orangey color, it is a technical amendment, or we refer to it as an other matter. So in the bill, we have 32 clauses and then broken down into these three different areas. So if you look at this slide, it's got the orange on the top. It's more of a technical nature. Then you've got your governance issues, and then also clause 9 of the bill deals with an electoral related matter. So if you look at the third block in the second row, you see impact defined in red font there. That means that in the engagements that we had in the Portfolio Committee, this was an inclusion that was done after or during those engagements in Parliament. If you go to the block thereunder, you would see in brackets changed to 10. That means that while in the original bill that went to Parliament, it indicated a minimum of 15 councillors, after engagements, presentations that were received, that 15 was changed to 10. So I'm going to skip the next couple of slides because it gives you the high-level overview, and then go to this slide here on, which deals in more detail each of the clauses that's in the bill. So each of the 32 clauses are expanded in per slide from here on. So if you look at the slide, clause 1, which deals with definitions, you will see in the green block there, the major sponsors of this amendment had come from the department, from provinces, from the IEC, as well as from SALGA. And the first item that we dealt with in there was to provide a definition for declared. And we confirmed that the date of declaration of the results by the IEC in the Gazette will be the date of assumption of duty by councillors. And this was necessary because municipalities had used different interpretations and different dates to use as the date of assumption. Some of them took the date of election as the date of assumption of duty. Some had taken the date of publication of the results by the IEC. And some municipalities took the date of the first council meeting as the date when a councillor had taken office. So now we would have uniformity, and municipalities across the country would be using the date of declaration of the results by the IEC as the date that a councillor had taken office. So in the definition section of the bill, we also delete the definition of DMA, and I'll explain why just now. And then we provide for the definition of WUP and also the definition of MPAC. And MPAC is highlighted in red again because it was in Parliament that we decided, or we neglected to include the definition of WUP in the original bill. The next slide deals with section 6 of the Act, clause 2, and this is of a technical nature, sponsored by the department, and it is basically to do away or to remove from the Act those sections that deals with district management areas. You would know that while in the first term we had provided or demarcated district management areas, that DMA provisions were subsequently withdrawn by the demarcation board by allocating these DMAs into local municipalities. So that's of a technical nature. The next clauses 3, 4, and 5 were sponsored by the department and provinces, and it's essentially to delete section 7C, 9E, and 9F of the Act because there was a request that we do away with the plenary type of municipality. Clause 6 deals with section 12 of the Act, which relates to MECs establishing municipalities, and this was of a technical nature as well, relating to district management areas. Clause 7 was mostly informed by the department and the Northern Cape province, and it deals with the determination of number of councillors. Now, initially, I indicated that we had in the original bill that the number or the minimum number of councillors in a municipality should be 15. After a lot of discussion in the committee, we had moved the 15 to 10, and I think it was something that the provincial COCTA had also raised concerns about, the number 15, and I think they had proposed that it be 10. A new provision that we've included in this section is that we now say that in instances where you have a municipality that is more than 20,000 square kilometers, we say now you may deviate by not more than 20% when the MEC for local government is determining the number of councillors. Now, if you look at the two issues raised in that clause, which is a minimum of 10, in these 19 municipalities of the country, these 7 or 9 that they have at the 2016 local government election, they would now move to having at least a minimum number of 10 councillors. For KZN, I think it is just the Impendler municipality that was affected. If you look at those municipalities across the country that are more than 20,000 square kilometers, we have 9 such municipalities, and in this instance, the MEC for local government in the province may not deviate by more than 20%. Just some trivia. If you look at David Kraper municipality in the Northern Cape, it is 44,000 square kilometers. The city of Joburg would be able to fit into that local municipality 27 times. The entire province of Gauteng would be able to fit in that local municipality almost 2.5 times. So moving on, we go to clause 8 of the bill, which deals with the qualifications for councillors. This was a request or a submission that was provided by the KZN COCTA, and it says that for those councillors that are removed by an MEC for breach of the Code of Conduct, there should be a 2-year cooling off period before such councillor may be eligible to be a councillor again. This, as we've been making presentations to other legislatures in the province, this was warmly received by many of them. Clause 9 deals with the election of metropolitan and local councils, and this is to give effect to the definition that we provided up front, the definition of declared elected. So too with clause 10, the election and appointment of district councils, so to align it that a councillor will take office on the day that the results are published, but also to deal with the matter around the technical nature of the removal of district management areas. Clause 25 deals with by-elections, and at this point, I want to hand over to Mr. Abrahams, but before he does, you would notice that on the 4th block there, it says the MEC decides that a by-election must stand over until the next election of all municipal councils. What we've inserted is that portion in the red, and we're saying that if an MEC decides that a by-election must stand over, he must do so in consultation with the Minister for COCTA. Chairperson, through you, I'd like to hand over to Mr. Abrahams.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, Dr. Naidu. Honourable Chairperson and honourable members, my name is Granville Abrahams. I am the General Manager for Electoral Matters at the Electoral Commission at the National Office. If I could take over where Dr. Naidu left off on Clause 11, deals with by-elections. One of the amendments that you may not see on the slide, but it's in the bill, we are saying that currently, as the legislation stands, it says that if the IEC does not declare the result within its 7 days, then that would also be a cause for by-election. We've added a rider to that effect to say that subject to the Electoral Court not having granted further extension. So if the Electoral Commission, for whatever reason, fails to declare the result of an election, it can still go to a court, and if the court decides to extend that we also observe that extension before by-election is created. Now, for the rest of the matters, it deals with the role of the municipal manager in notifying the IEC and proclaiming a by-election. For a number of years since we started with by-elections, and I'm now referring to ward by-elections, with the exception of the very first one in 2000, when we were still trying to find our feet, and I think about 5 years ago, the practice has been that the municipal manager does not proclaim the by-election. He, in fact, hands over that responsibility to the MEC in the province. And the reason for that is that the legislation required the municipal manager to declare or proclaim the election, to actually proclaim the election within 14 days. Now, proclamation of an election, you will may be aware, effectively closes the voters' roll, and therefore any opportunity for voters to add their name to the voters' roll or to change their details. However, if the municipal manager does not proclaim, then the legislation in its current form also provides that that responsibility then passes over to the MEC in the province. The practice since 2000 has been for MECs to do that, and what we are proposing now in the bill is to formalize that so that the all by-elections are proclaimed by MECs. This is also for practical reasons, because the legislation further requires that the MEC should do so in consultation with the Commission in determining a date for the election, so that the Electoral Commission can then draw up an election timetable. And this has worked well over the years. Effectively, what that means is, from a national point of view, we only have to be in consultation with 9 MECs instead of in excess of 200 and odd municipal managers. Also, currently, as it stands, this is not a new provision, but we are also passing this on all of the responsibilities over to the MEC. It says that the MEC may not call a by-election if there's less than 9 months to the general election remains. Now, as things stand, we are asking now that that responsibility be passed on to the municipal manager. And then Dr. Naidu has mentioned that if for any other reason not listed, that the MEC also wants to decide that a by-election stands over, he needs to do that in consultation with the national minister. So in effect, for all of these provisions, we are basically just replacing the MEC in fact, we're replacing the municipal manager and passing on those responsibilities to the MEC. Now, I must point out that this relates to ward by-elections and also in cases where you would have dissolved councils. I will deal with PR councillors later on when we get to the schedule. In clause 12, we're also saying that when a political party informs a municipal manager of a vacancy, that this notification must be by an authorized rep. We have found a number of cases in parties that the municipal manager will get a notification to say Councillor X is no longer a member, and then Councillor X will come back and say, no, but I am now the leader and that person is no longer a member. So to manage those situations, we are borrowing from the Municipal Electoral Act, where we have a definition of what we call an authorized representative of that party. So we are therefore saying in the Municipal Structures Amendment Bill that only an authorized representative may inform a municipal manager of a vacancy. I think this will also assist municipal managers greatly, because in most cases when they get these notifications and it's from persons that they are not acquainted with, they ask us to advise. Dr. Naidu, I hand back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Abraham. So the next, yes, Chair, thank you. So clause 13 was also sponsored by the KZN COCTA, and this is basically to ensure that a person that is designated by the MEC can call a meeting in instances where the speaker, acting speaker, refuses to do so. Now, we've seen that in many instances across the country, for various reasons, speakers or acting speakers just refuse to call meetings. So this is an intervention to try and see how we continue municipalities having to deal with operations and business before them. The next slide deals with a technical matter. It's clause 16, and it's basically to do away with or to align with doing away with the plenary type of municipality. The next clause 17 deals with the functions of speakers, and in this clause we are providing for 4 additional matters that speakers are now responsible for, and these are to ensure that the legislative arm of a municipality functions effectively, is responsible for effective oversight over the executive authority of the council. So all of the issues that you see in red there are the additions that are now being placed on to the office of the speaker. And the intention behind this is to ensure that we strengthen further the role of the speaker and to promote the proper functioning of the executive and the legislative arms of a municipality. The next section is quite a substantive amendment to the Act, in that we now provide for an entire new section to deal with the establishment of the office of the whip. Okay, so in section 41A, we provide for the election of the whip, the functions of the whip, the term of office, a vacation in the office of the whip, as well as how a whip may be removed from office, and also to provide for acting whips. The next clause deals with the composition of executive committees, sponsored also then by the KwaZulu-Natal COCTA. In essence, the substantive issues that we are amending here is that we are replacing the word elect with the word determine. And this has because of certain dynamics and court cases that have dealt with this matter. The provision, the amendment also now provides or prescribes a specific formula in terms of how ExCos must be established or how they must be composed. And this slide here gives you a scenario of a municipality with 61 councillors, and Party A having 52 seats, Party B having 3, Party C having 2, and then 4 seats split amongst other parties. In option 1, we have a quota system together with, and also in option 2, we have a quota, but 2 different formulas to determine the quota. In the first instance, we have the quota formula indicated by seats divided by the size of ExCo plus 1. Whereas in the second option, we have just this number of seats in a municipality divided by the size of the ExCo. The permutations would indicate different category allocations per party. Okay, and then the proposed amendment we have no quota, and we say that the formula to be used would be the number of seats in a municipality divided by the total number of councillors times the size of the ExCo. And if you look at what the results are for each of the parties there, you would see that Party A would get 9, Party B would get 1, and Party C would get 0. But also, in the Party A receiving the 9 seats, because we have a identify rather than elect or determine, the party that's got 9 seats can also enter into negotiations with other parties to see how they compose the 9 that they are eligible for. The next, clause 20, deals with the functions and powers of executive committees, and it has been sponsored by SALGA, and we say here substantively that the committee must forward these reports together with its recommendations to council, because we found that the practice in some instances is that ExCos and executive mayors stifle reports of oversight committees, as they say that they must go through them first before they can deal with the matters, and that they only need to take it to council if they deem it necessary. And the question that has been asked is, So who will forward a report that implicates themselves to council? The next clause deals with functions and powers of executive mayors, and it is now set to read as follows: that an executive mayor is entitled to receive reports from Section 80 committees and then to forward these reports together with a recommendation to council. The next clause 22 deals with the establishment of ward committees, and while there has been no time frame for the establishment of ward committees in the present formulation in the Act, we now say that municipalities, after a general election of all councils, must establish ward committees within 120 days. But this may be deviated from unless there's extenuating circumstances that permits otherwise, as we had seen in the Mutu local council post the 2016 local government elections. Clause 23 deals with the establishment of oversight committees. We've now included a new section that provides for the establishment of municipal public accounts committees. We provide for who should not be members of that committee, and we also provide alignment of this provision together with the MFMA. But importantly, we say that reports that are processed by MPAC must be submitted to the Speaker, and who must table such reports in the next meeting of the Municipal Council. In an engagement that we had with the Western Cape Legislature 2 days ago, they proposed that such reports, they proposed an amendment to say that such reports be tabled in the next ordinary meeting of the Municipal Council. The next clause deals with the code of conduct for traditional leaders. But because of the enactment of the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act, this clause has become obsolete, and the Department of Traditional Affairs has indicated to the NCOP that they've proposed a relevant amendment in this regard. The next clause 25 is also of a technical nature, and it deals with the deletion of district management areas from the Structures Act. The next Clause 26 is also of a technical nature, and it deals with the reference to the plenary type of municipality, which we are now removing from the Act. And the next clause 27 deals with an electoral matter, and I'm going to hand over again, Chairperson, to Mr. Abrahams to take us through this.
Thanks, Dr. Naidu. Through you, Honourable Chair. I'm moving now to clause 27 and 28. Now, 27 deals with Schedule 1 of the Act, and Schedule 1 of the Act deals with metropolitan councils and local councils, and Schedule 2 deals with district councils. So the first item, and on this one I'm going to spend a little bit of time, deals with what we call excessive seats. And this impacts on the seat allocation after the votes have been counted and results been made known. Now, incidentally, we've had about 3 cases of the following scenario, which I'm going to explain to you happening. And I think 2 of them happened in KZN. The most recent one happened in a by-election for a dissolved council in Metsimaholo. I'm going to backtrack and start with the Constitution to get a better understanding of this. The Constitution of the Republic states that in determining an electoral system for local government, we may go one of 2 ways. The first one being proportional, and I'm sure all of us understand what proportional is, and it's just simple proportional. The second option is to have a mixture of proportional as well as constituency-based system for election. And that is the one that we chose. So in local government, you will find now that 50% of your councillors are ward councillors or constituency-based, and the other 50% are proportional. The Constitution, however, furthermore states that and says that even if we go for the mixed system, that overall the result must still result in proportionality. And that is where the trick comes in. So in our must still seat calculation formula, and that is where what we do is we add the ballot of the ward and what we call the PR ballot, and we determine proportionally what the number of seats would be by using those, adding those two votes together and splitting it amongst the available seats in a council amongst that. Now, if voters vote for the same party on a ward ballot, as they do on a PR ballot, then we will not have a situation where we have what we call excessive seats. So, in determining a PR seat, we first of all determine the total number of seats a party is entitled to based on, as I said, total valid votes of both ballots. Then we subtract the ward seats. And what remains, that is in fact actually PR ballots. So the PR ballot, as we know it, does not directly elect the councillor. It is what remains after we had deducted the ward seats. Now, we've had 3 cases so far, as I've mentioned, whereby a party ends up getting more wards than what it is entitled to overall proportionally. Let me do this by way of an explanation. Let's say that after having added both ballots for a party and finding what its portion of seats are, total seats on the council is, and let's say that amounts to 5. But this very same party won 6 wards. So they cannot get any PR seats because they already have 6 ward seats. However, they are exceeding by 1 what they are proportionally entitled to. We, however, cannot take the ward seat away because the determination of a ward councillor is the person at the ballot who gains the most votes. So that remains. Now, what happened in Metsimaholo and in, I think it was Danhauser, in this case, what we do, and this has been the practice, we deal with this in the same way as if an independent had won a ward. Now, currently, what the legislation says, if an independent wins a ward, you take that ward out of the equation because parties cannot contest for that. Similarly, and this is in its most simplest explanation, we are saying if a party has an excessive seat, then we will do a recalculation but remove all the seats that they have won, all the ward seats. And the remaining parties will then contest for whatever seats remain. We have implemented this, as I've mentioned, about 3 or 4 times. I must just add at this stage that if you look at the bill, and on page 10, there's just a correction. The definition of B, where it says where A and then you got where B. The bill currently says where B represents the total number of seats. That should be changed to votes and not seats. Because if you look at the formula, you will find that we are dealing with votes on top as the numerator and seats at the bottom on the denominator. For the rest of item Schedule 1, this is item 17, 18 and 20. Once again, this is just to align to common practice. It is not unusual or it may be that a party submitted a list, a PR list of 5 seats, but when the results come out, they actually did so well that they have more than 5 seats allocated to them. What this would then mean is that the list, the candidate list, would have insufficient candidates. We have allowed parties in the past to supplement that list. It is still allowed. The only proviso is that we are putting a clock on it. We are saying where this happens, that a party must inform us within 2 days of the results being announced. Now, the reason for that is that the Electoral Commission, after announcing the results, they must publish the names of councillors. And we can't publish a name and say blank or to be advised, because the purpose of publishing the councillor names is so that councils may constitute. Similarly, and we have, this one is more common, a candidate may end up being designated more than 1 seat. So, for example, we may have a candidate contesting a ward and also being on the PR list. He, however, cannot take up more than 1 seat and has to make a choice. Where a ward seat is involved, the most obvious choice is to take the ward, because if the ward is not chosen, then there would be a vacancy immediately and a by-election would need to be called. Similarly, you may find a candidate being on a PR list for a local council. There would be a vacancy immediately and a by-election would need to be called. On a PR list for a district council. Similarly, you may find, and if he's designated to both, he can only occupy 1. So for the same reason as with insufficient list, we are putting a clock on it and saying that party must inform us within 2 days. In both cases, insufficient list and multiple seats, where a party does not inform us within 2 days, that seat will be forfeited. So if it involved a ward, there will be a by-election. If it's a party list, that will insufficient list, that will also be forfeited. In item 18, there is a requirement for PR councillors when there is a vacancy for the municipal manager to notify the IEC of such a vacancy. We are extending that 7 days to 14 days. And furthermore, we are also stipulating in the case where the municipal manager does not inform us, that the MEC then intervenes and informs us of such a notification. Item 20, we've had some challenges with this in the past. If I could just first of all give an explanation in terms of what item 20 in its current state says. It says that a party may change its candidate list at any time. Now, I think a lot of parties refer to this as their reserve list. Even though the legislation is not specific, and some parties have even then interpreted, and the legislation in its current form is very loose, and we're closing the gap, that they may also change the candidate list before councillors are elected. They may change that also at any time. Now, this is problematic insofar as that the Chief Electoral Officer is required in terms of electoral legislation to certify a list of candidates. So there's a candidate nomination process, there's a cutoff date, and the purpose of that cutoff date is to say nominations are closed, and then the Chief Electoral Officer must then do his inspection and administration thereof, and thereafter he must certify the list. This list that is certified is published and made available to public, the voters, so that they may make informed choices when they get to the ballot box. Now, if a party is allowed to change this list before the election results is announced or before councillors are designated, we find that this is misleading to the electorate and undermines also the role that the Chief Electoral Officer has in certifying the nomination process. So the amendment proposes the following, amends accordingly. It says that, yes, a party may amend its list at any time, however, not after a list has been certified. The next opportunity that they have is after the first council meeting, so that we designate councillors based on the list that has been certified by the Chief Electoral Officer. That names will then be published, council sits, and after council has sit their first sitting, then a party may then from there onwards amend its list. I think what this also, and this, Dr. Naidu, if I have it right, was also initiated or sponsored by the province of KwaZulu-Natal, Cocter, because there was a challenge that this created difficulty for municipalities to constitute because there was a whole lot of changes before meeting. In Schedule 2, which deals with district councils, we effectively repeat all of the same issues that I've dealt with now. The insufficient list, the multiple list, and also the amending of the list are all repeated, but the reason why they are so is because Schedule 2 deals with district council. And then also consistent to what we have done since the start, we are also deleting any reference to district management areas, DMAs. On that note, I think I am done, Dr. Naidu, with my portion, and I hand back to you, through you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Abraham. So clause 29, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, is more of a technical nature. So because we've now included a provision of WHIP in the legislation, we also now include in Schedule 3 of the Act WHIP as also to be an office bearer in a municipality. The next clause deals with the migration of the Code of Conduct from the Systems Act into the Structures Act now. And the reason for this is that Within the scheme of the Municipal Structures Act, which provides for municipal councils, it provides for internal structures and functionaries, it was considered appropriate that the Code of Conduct for Councillors, rather than being in the Systems Act, should now be in the Structures Act. Clause 31, technical nature, and it provides for the repeal of laws. It provides for Section 19 from the Systems Act and Schedule 1 of the Systems Act to be migrated from the Systems into the Structures Act. And then the last clause in the bill deals with its short title and commencement, and which will come into operation when the Act is signed by the President and it being proclaimed in the Government Gazette. Chairperson and honourable members, that's our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Naidu and Mr. Abrahams, for your presentation. I think we have benefited. I think members, they have bites, they have issues to raise for classes. Without waste of time, let me then allow members to then interact with the presentation. Yes, who want to speak? Okay, Honorable Gunene. Any other member?
Honorable Ntuli.
Honorable Ntuli, the second one. Another one?
Honorable Governor.
Honorable Governor. Okay, let me give these three members for now to then make a point. We'll start with Babu Gnene, Honorable Gnene.
Honorable Slalo. I don't know whether one would wish to request that the presentation where he was talking about elect or determine and the one of excessive seats because they were very complicated, that they be redone or repeated so that one understands clearly what is expected or what it contained therein. In fact, for the first one of elect or determine, where he also referred to where the allocation of a party has got allocated a number of seats, was it implying that a party may invite other parties to serve with it in ESCO? That it can have its number of seats and then invite other parties to serve in it. When that happens, is it a coalition of some sort, or what actually happens in terms of that party which has been invited to serve in the ESCO? Will it use its own mandate, or will it use the mandate of the party that has invited it to serve in ESCO? And also, if I could be given more a repeat on the issue of the excessive seats, because it was convoluted when it was explained, and I would wish that he be slower to repeat it. I don't know whether other members have heard it, and I'm sorry if they've heard it. I'm subjecting them to a repeat of this clause in terms of the presentation.
Honorable Ntuli.
Thanks, Lalo. Just a few questions. The first is, when do you think that this will come into effect? I mean, we have the local government elections next year. Obviously, with Corona, we're not sure about where things stand at the moment. But when are we thinking that these proposed amendments if all are passed, will come into effect. That's the first one. The second one echoes what the speaker before me said. Just on that slide where you had the seat allocations, and it had the one slide at the end, if you could just go back to that quickly. The one that says quotas, which are seats divided by the number of expressed. Yeah, that one. So just so I understand, and please explain it to me like I'm a grade 3 student. When you say the proposed amendment says no quota, are we saying that there would be less of a proportional system in terms of the way that it's done now? Or I don't know. I wasn't quite clear what the difference is going to be now. I understand that as it stands currently, it is unfair to parties that win wards and then aren't able to get their proportional seats. I don't know if that's wrong in my understanding. If you could just explain that in a bit more of a simple language, please, I'd be grateful. Thank you. Hello, is someone talking?
Chair,
I'm finished.
where's the chair?
The chair is here. Why are you asking the chair is here?
Okay, can I speak, Chairperson?
Yes, I've been calling for you to speak.
Oh, thanks. I didn't hear you. Chairperson, I just wanted to support the proposed amendment of a new section 79A that is going to be inserted, the establishment of the oversight committee. I think that this is something that is long overdue, and it will certainly ensure that the oversight work within a council is performed as it should be. Thanks.
No, thanks very much, Honorables. May I give Mr. Naidu and Mr. Abrahams to deal with the questions, starting with Babuk Nene and then Honorable Ntuli. And lastly, I think Honorable Kavenda was commenting.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Abrahams will deal with the matter around the excessive seats. But let me try and see how I can help to make or try and simplify the understanding of the amendment to the composition of executive committees. So presently we have a situation where there is no prescribed formula that municipalities may use to determine how an executive committee is composed. So you would have a municipality that may not have more than 10 ExCo members. The practice is presently you may have a municipality applying a formula such as quota, a formula where you have a quota or a quota of a certain formula or no quota at all, right? And we're saying that for uniform application across the country, we should have a single formula. And the single formula that we are prescribing in the Act is to say that the equation or the formula that you would use would be the number of seats in a municipality divided by the total number of councillors times the size of ExCo. That is the formula that we are prescribing, okay? So, and you would see the result that it gives you is the same as the formula that is used in option 2 with a quota, okay? So party A in both instances get 9 seats, party B in both instances get 1 seat. And we're saying that for simplification, let's not have the quota leading you into another equation, but let's rather use one equation, which would be seats divided by total number of councillors times the size of ExCo. So that's the first part of the response. The second part of the response is that, so presently we have the word in the legislation that says members of the executive committees must be elected by council. Okay, so we have a general election of all municipalities, and councillors are elected to be part of the municipal council. Okay, so a councillor is elected and is now part of the council. The law, as it stands presently, says that you need to have another meeting in the council to elect the members of council. So let's say the formula gives you 9 councillors to form the ExCo from party A. Those 9 councillors, in terms of the law presently, must be subjected to another election. And we're saying that in order to not have the second election, if I can call it that, party A would through the formula have 9 seats, and they would choose who those 9 councillors from their party could be that would form part of the ExCo. The second leg to that is the word determine. And we're saying that through determine, that party would be determining who would be formed or be composing their portion in the ExCo, but the 9 may not necessarily, based on what the party needs and wants are, may not necessarily be all councillors from the same party. They can, and like the honourable member indicated, they could, through some sharing agreement that they have based on the needs, dynamics in the municipality, etc., could say, okay, councillor from that party or that independent could also be part of the 9 that has been determined for party A. So that's my best attempt, Honourable Chair and members, at that explanation. When will it come into effect? I think there are a lot of implications for good management and administration of elections that's contained in the bill. And ideally, we would want to have the bill enacted prior to the next local government elections. Obviously, COVID-19 has disrupted processing of the bill. When I was in the NCOP in Feb, there was indication that all processes by the provincial legislatures would be finalized by the end of May, end of June at the latest. That seems to have been challenged now with the dynamics that we are faced with. But so far, as COPTA and the IEC, we've had engagements now with the KZN province and with the Western Cape, Free State, and Mpumalanga, Gauteng, leaving us with 4 other provinces where this process still needs to be initiated. So with that input, Chair, I hope I've been able to clarify the issues. If not, I can try again and to see what challenges or uncertainties are still in members' minds. With that, I'd like to hand over to Mr. Abrahams to deal with the excess of seats through you, Chair.
All right, Mr. Abrahams.
Thank you, Dr. Naidoo. Through you, Honourable Chair. I think that it is a bit tricky when you try to explain a mathematical formula in words and you also do so without being face-to-face or with the diagram of sort. But let me just emphasize the following. We are not changing the formula for determining the results. What we are doing is coming up with a solution to deal with an anomaly. And allow me to currently, first of all, we're all aware of the fact that for local government, we have ward councillors and we have PR councillors, and they are 50-50. So in an election, there is a ballot paper for a ward councillor. And that ballot paper on its own, that determines who will win the election. The one who gets the most votes deals with that, wins that election. We, however, also have proportional councils, but there is no ballot paper for proportional councillors. What we refer to as the PR ballot, that does not directly elect a councillor. I mentioned earlier that the Constitution states that even where we have a mixed system, overall, the overall result must still, as far as possible, must be proportional. So let me just demonstrate that by way of an example and use very small numbers. Assume a scenario where we have 10 seats in a council. So obviously 5 of them would be ward seats and the other would be PR seats. They also assume in this scenario that there are 50 voters. Now, if 50 voters each gets 2 ballots, then we're going to have 100 votes. Along comes party A. The total for the 2 ballots, for both ballots added up together, comes to 30. However, they, obviously having contested the wards, they won some wards, but let's just backtrack for a while. Now, they won, or they got 30 votes, if you take the 2 ballots combined. And the total ballots for the 50 voters was 100. So 30 over 100, in simple terms, is 30%. So they won 30% of the seats. Now 30% of 10 equals 3. Now, in terms of the Constitution, we have now achieved to say that overall proportionality, total number of seats they should get is 3. However, when we look at the ward results, we find that they won 2. But remember now, they have 3 seats, but they won 2 wards. So, the one remaining seat, that then becomes a PR. That is the normal scenario. Now assume the same party. They got 30% of the valid votes, adding the 2 ballots together. So they're eligible for 3 seats. However, they win 4 of the 5 wards in this municipality. And this is where we say now they have an excessive seat. Because in terms of overall proportionality, they were only entitled to 3. But they won 4 wards. The legislation also furthermore determines to say that a ward is won by the party or the candidate who gets the most votes. So this seats one cannot take away from the party. What do we do then? We say, okay, there were 10 councillor seats in this municipality. 4 was won by this party. Let's take that off and then 6 remains. We also then take away all of that party's votes. So what will happen now is that the valid votes will be 70 and we'll get all of the remaining parties with their valid ballot votes will then contest for those seats on the basis of 70 valid votes, and they will contest 6 seats in that municipality. Chair, I think that's as simple as I can get. Maybe if there's still not clarity, if there's specific questions regarding the example, then I could maybe afford the honourable members further clarity. Thank you.
I'm clarified, Hlalo.
I'm good too.
Velase.
We told you about Nen.
I am very much happy. I'm satisfied, Hlalo. Thank you very much for the explanation.
No, thanks very much. Honorable Ntuda, are you okay?
Yes, Chair, I'm fine.
All right. No, thanks very much. Let me give another round if there are any members who want to engage on the issue. On my side, the only part that I didn't hear from you, Mr. Naidu and Abraham, it's a removal of a councillor by a party. That what process now? Because some parties, they find it difficult to discipline some councillors who are misbehaving because sometimes the parties are not assisted, or the legislation does not give a clear direction in terms of the removal of the councillor. The process is look like it's of course councillors must be protected for abuse, but councillors cannot be above their parties. So whether maybe I didn't hear that part or it was not mentioned, can someone clarify for me?
Thank you. If I may.
Yes, yes.
Currently, the legislation only allows for the following circumstances for a vacancy occurring. The one is if a councillor dies, death. 2, if a councillor resigns. 3, if a councillor is no longer a member of his party, which is the one that you refers to. And 4thly, is if he is removed in terms of the code of conduct by the MEC. I think what happens is that the difficulty that you may relate to is that parties sometimes would write to the municipal manager or to the IEC and say, this person has now been redeployed. Now, if the councillor has been redeployed, or if he's, then he obviously should submit a resignation. Or alternatively, the other wording that is used is that the councillor is recalled. Now, the legislation does not make provision for such. You would have to rely entirely on the one, either to get the person's membership being terminated, or alternatively to get that person to resign. Now, one of the big challenges that we have when it comes to this specific one is that councillors, they obviously challenge the disciplinary processes, or sometimes there's no processes. If I look at some of the smaller parties, there is just a decision that's taken by the party leader to say, I'm replacing someone. Now, we have to be observant, and the position of the IEC is that we do not get involved in internal political party matters. And when it comes to this, if an authorized leader of a party tells us that Mr. X or Councillor X is no longer a member of a party, we accept that in good faith, subject to, obviously, the person who informs us, the party official, is authorized to do so. The recourse that the councillor then has, obviously, is if he feels aggrieved, he can go and challenge it. But the IEC has a legislated responsibility to deal with these matters. And unless we are interdicted by a court, we will proceed on the instruction of an authorized party official or leader who says that someone is no longer a member of the party. But as the legislation stands, it is not possible for a party to withdraw a councillor without him having physically resigned and so that he can still be a member of the party. You either have to remove the person as a member of the party, then causing a vacancy, or alternatively, he has to resign. I don't know if that deals or responds to the matter, unless there are maybe further questions that I can clarify further. Thanks, Honourable Chair.
No, thanks. I'm sure it's an issue that we would need to engage before the bill is passed, because parties, they face a number of challenges. I remember one issue, I'm not going to mention where it happened, where a list was forged before IEC and that it was submitted, and then later the party find that there was cheating on the issue of a list. But now the problem, the councillors who were in by mistake, they now refuse to resign. So they were taken as councillors, but the list was forged before it reached IEC. But I think it's an issue that we need to engage as we are still dealing with the bill. We might not finalize everything now. Any member who want to speak before we move on? Members, are we still there, honorables?
Second, team.
Skona Shlala.
Yes.
Class.
Unzima lo mcimbi akukhulumeki kuwo, i-high level.
No, wena ukukhiphile nje Sibari, wena ungiremovile.
Sibari ngane ngiphatheka kabi awukho la Sibari, ngeke ke nguremove ngaba remove bonke osonjica bonke wabanye.
Abaphuma usonjica.
Khuluma Sibari, ngeke ungakhulumi lapha mholi wefundisi.
No, my lady, I was removed for a longer part. I'm very, very sorry. And it was such an important thing. Bearing in mind that I've never been in local government. I was going to be educated.
Okay. No, sorry for that, man. Hey, that's the situation. Anyone want to speak? It's looking like we are all covered, of course, believing that it's a process. This is not a final exercise. We are going to be continuing. And of course, ours as members, because we are deployed by our political parties, is to ensure that we familiarize ourselves with the presentation and the bill, so that at the end of the day, we give direction. We must not undermine this bill. There are a number of challenges which affect us as parties in different ways. So therefore, we have to ensure that we understand, we read the bill, so that we make a meaningful contribution to ensure that it gives the result that from us. We must not be in the same understanding or the same approach on the bill, but at the end of the day, as a committee, we need to find each other and say, this is what we want. I understand that some members is difficult because our meeting really, as Honorable Nkosi was out for a long time, and he came back, he cannot make a contribution, but we will rely that members, of course, they will consult, and if there are issues, we can use our official Nonto and Noctula to ensure that they get the advice, the member with necessary. As a chair, I allow members to communicate with the Unonto or Noctula for any help that they may require for them to further their understanding on the issue of the bill. So that will help us, because we must. It has gone a long way. When you look at it, started in 2018, so it means the bill has been there for a long time. but we hope that we'll be able to give a direction as the province that is respected in terms of ideas with the legacy of Chief Albert Lutuli and other leaders. So therefore, Nonto, are you there? Nonto, are you there?
Yes.
Nonto, are you there? Okay.
Yes,
Nonto, yes, we are towards the end of the presentation now. Any comments from the administration in terms of the process from now?
Slalo, I'm
Yes.
not sure whether we're going to follow the same process we had the committee had decided on for the customary bill, that of placing the adverts on print media and also having radio slots on radio slots, as well as the ones for local radios. I don't know if that's the process that the committee wants to take for this bill as well.
I assume so, but let me hear the members. We are a democratic committee. There is no final word from one member. What members are saying on the... Yes.
Sorry,
Chairperson.
Honorable Julie, sorry, I didn't hear what Nonto said. Could you please repeat it?
Okay, Nonto, they said they didn't hear you. Can you raise your voice now?
Slalo,
Yes.
my line is very bad, but Slalo, I was saying I don't know if the committee wants to take the same route as they did with the customary bill, that of going the print media route and requesting for written submissions, as well as going to the radio, to the local radio and local newspapers to advertise. So I don't know if the committee wants to go the same route, looking at the issue that we can't do public hearings. Thanks, Chair.
Okay.
Chairperson.
It was clear. Yes.
Maggie Governor, I would support the idea of the public information, and as we've done for the customary for the initiation bill, because I think it's important that the public is made aware of the proposed amendments.
Okay.
I
Yes,
second
Babugnene.
Honorable Julie.
Right. Babugnene, we heard you, Honorable Ntuli. Babugnene?
Slalo.
Yes.
Yes, I just don't know in terms of the time frame outline in terms of processing this bill, because I heard the National Cochlear representative saying that they are still going to go to 3 other provinces, and whether the target is to ensure that this bill is passed by the time of the next local government elections that are going to come next year. But lastly, to say we also need to find a way of ensuring that municipalities themselves are able to comment on this bill. I don't know whether a mechanism has been established to ensure that we get input from municipalities within the province about this proposed bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Naidu. Can you deal with the questions raised by Honorable Gnene?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Look, I have no idea as to when the outstanding provinces are going to start initiating their processes. But in my discussions in the NCOP in February, Chair, it was indicated, and this was before COVID, it was indicated that the plan was to have finalized the processing of the bill and to submit it to the presidency for consideration around May, June of this year. Obviously, that's not going to be possible now, but I think, elections 2021 will be held between August and November, and I'm hopeful, I'm confident that, these processing by the legislatures, the provincial legislatures, could be done in time for the bill to be still considered before the elections next year. So I'd rather leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
All right. So, yeah, I think the other issue that Ubabugnene raised is the issue of the consultation with the municipalities, which I think that rests with us in terms of the public participation. Of course, we cannot talk about the bill that affects municipalities without them being involved in comments. So I think the Nondo and Nokula, let's do as we agree on the previous presentation. That was how are we going to be consulting with the public and the stakeholders that are affected by the bill. So I think let's do that effectively. Let us be proactive. And because we have two bills now, which must not confuse now the communities so we must make sure that communities are not confused by which bill are they need to comment to or whatever. So I think we'll do that effectively so that all of us, we are in terms of the line. It's good for us to be ready and wait for whatever situation. So if we could work under these conditions, it's fine. And everybody waits until the pronouncements in terms of after whether lockdown or whatever happens. So I believe that, yes, who's speaking?
Slalo.
Okay, let's start with Gunene before Nonto you speak. Let's start with Honorable Gunene. Babugnene.
Also to check, Honorable Chairperson, whether we've got this local government municipal structures amendment bill translated into isiZulu in order to consult with communities. But I think municipalities will require an English version. But when we consult with communities, we will need an isiZulu version of it. Thank you.
I think Nonto will take care as we have requested before. There's no need to answer. It's just a matter of emphasizing that we are in the province where the majority of people are speaking isiZulu. So therefore, we need to consider in order for them to be able to participate. Participation is not just a lip service thing, but it must be something that makes people feel that they are part of. In order for them to feel being part of is to allow them to share the document with their language that they are comfortable on. So Nondo, you wanted to speak?
Yes, Slalo. Through you, Chair, may I request Margaret to take the committee through the issue of dates if she's got any for the negotiating mandate and the final mandate, Slalo. Thanks.
Hello, Chair, and good afternoon, members.
Now I can hear. All right, Margaret, yes, you can address us.
All right. Thank you, Chair. The Parliamentary Programming Committee met on Tuesday, and when they sent through the program that was agreed to, the dates for these the two bills, the customary initiation bill and this municipal structures bill, the dates that were shown in their calendar is the negotiating mandate is the 2nd of June, and the final mandate is the 9th of June. However, we haven't had a program from the COGTA Select Committee. So that may change because I think that the Secretary of the NCOP is very aware of the restrictions that the legislatures are facing because of the COVID-19 situation. So he is looking at each select committee program and making sure that the dates of the processing of the bills are doable. So as soon as I get that select committee program, I will forward it to Nonto, and then she can let everybody know on the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Margaret. I think if all members are covered by what has been presented and what has been discussed, but my emphasis is that please, members, let us read. Let's give ourselves time to read so that we understand what we're dealing with. It's not a small thing. It's a very, very crucial process in ensuring that municipalities run effectively and there are no problems created. So I believe that we must handle this with care. So in those words, thank you very much to all members who participated, and thank you very much to the official Nonto and your team for ensuring that we coordinate. We are apologizing for those people who couldn't participate effectively due to the fact that they cut off because of networks and other problems that they might be created by the system we are using. But we hope that we will get there soon. So have a nice weekend and continue to be safety in this coronavirus or COVID-19. And all the best to you members. We see each other in another meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Siyabonga Sibali. Hey, siyathokoza baba ukunene.
Thank you. Siyabonga Sihlalo. Thanks for
Sihlalo, siyathokoza nabahlonishwa bonke.
Ukhona mntwana. Mntwana kodwa. Mntwana siyabingelela.
Sihlalo wami nabahlonishwa.
Siyabonga. Hayi ke nibambe kahle ke nibe ne-weekend enhle siyabonga.
Siyabonga.
Awuchiliza Fosi yami.
Sihlalo.
Uyaphila mfowethu kunjani wena?
Siyaphila mfowethu, siyaphila.
Hayi siyabonga Dunga elikhulu.
Siyabonga mntwana, uyaphila? Ngiyaphila mholi wami. Siyabonga mntwana. Hlonishwa.
Njani Shenge?
Timande ngiyaphila mholi.
Siyathokoza Shenge.
Thokoza kakhulu Deputy Whip.
Thank you very much.
Mtimande.